I used to believe that love, real love, was something that circled back, that when you gave it freely, it would find its way home again. Maybe not right away, but someday, somehow. I carried that belief like a sacred prayer in my chest, whispering it through the long years when my husband passed, when my children built their own lives far away, and when the silence in my house began to sound like the ticking of a clock that forgot how to stop. My name is Ahyoka, and I am 78 years old. My bones may be brittle, my hands may tremble when I pour my morning tea, but my heart still remembers what it means to love deeply, to trust completely, and to be broken silently. When I speak now, I don't speak for pity. I speak because somewhere out there, another old woman might be staring out her window tonight, wondering where she went wrong, wondering why love doesn't always stay where it's promised to. Before I tell you what happened, let me ask you something. Have you ever given someone everything, your trust, your time, your heart, only to watch them turn away as if none of it ever mattered? If you have, then you'll understand my story. And if you haven't, then maybe you'll understand why people like me never stop believing, even when believing hurts. It started on a spring morning when my granddaughter, Tessa, came to visit me after nearly 2 years of silence. I remember the soft knock on my wooden door, the one my husband carved himself 40 years ago. The sound was hesitant, like guilt hiding behind gentleness. I opened it, and there she stood, her hair cut short now, her eyes rimmed with tears she didn't want me to see. She looked so grown, so sure of herself, but something in her face still held the little girl I used to rock to sleep when thunder scared her. "Grandma," she said, her voice breaking on that one word, "I missed you." And just like that, all the hurt melted. I didn't ask why she hadn't called, didn't question where she'd been, or why she'd left me alone all those months. My heart, foolish, tender, always too open, only heard the word missed. I hugged her tight. She smelled of perfume and city air, the kind of smell that tells you a person's been far from home. She told me she'd been busy, working hard, building her future, and I believed her. I always believed her. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one that's seen 50 winters of my family gathered around it. The sunlight fell across her face, and for a moment I thought maybe time could stop there. Maybe this was the moment I'd been waiting for, the moment when love came circling back. Then she reached for my hand. "Grandma," she said softly, "you shouldn't be living alone anymore. It's not safe. You forget things sometimes. And the stairs, they're dangerous for you." Her words were wrapped in concern, but they pressed against my chest like invisible weights. I smiled and told her I was fine, that my memory wasn't as bad as people said, that I still cooked, still sewed, still remembered every recipe her mother forgot to learn. But she shook her head and gave me that look, the kind young people give to old ones when they think they know better. She said she wanted to help, said she'd found a nice place, a nursing home, but a good one with gardens and friendly people and nurses who really cared. I laughed it off. I thought she was joking. My home, the one my husband built, the one where my children took their first steps. How could I ever leave it? But Tessa's voice trembled with sincerity. She said she wanted to take care of me, that she'd visit every weekend, that she just wanted me to be safe. And maybe it was the loneliness talking, or maybe I was tired of waking up to silence every morning. But part of me wanted to believe her. For the next few days, she stayed with me. She helped clean, rearrange things, made calls I didn't quite understand. I thought she was just helping, being a good granddaughter. But sometimes when she thought I wasn't watching, I'd see her take pictures of my house, of the deed papers I kept in my drawer, of the old jewelry box my husband had given me, and once, late at night, I heard her whispering on the phone, Her tone wasn't gentle anymore. It was sharp, practical, almost cold. I told myself I must have been hearing wrong. Because love, real love, doesn't sound like that, does it? By the end of that week, she'd convinced me to just come and see the place she was talking about. It's not forever, Grandma, she promised. Just until I fix the bathroom pipes and repaint your bedroom. You'll love it there. Her words painted pictures in my mind: warm rooms, kind faces, safety. I told myself it was temporary, just a short stay. I didn't even pack all my things. I remember locking my front door that morning, the key trembling in my hand, not knowing it was the last time I'd ever turn it. Before we go further, tell me this. If your grandchild asked you to trust them, would you? Would you believe their smile, their promise, their love, even if something in your gut whispered wait? Because that's what I did. I chose love over doubt, and that was the beginning of the end of everything I knew. The ride to that place was quiet. Tessa talked the whole way, filling the silence with cheerful stories about her new job, her apartment in the city, how she finally found herself. I nodded along, pretending to listen, but my heart felt heavier with every mile. The farther we drove, the more it felt like we weren't just leaving my home. No, we were leaving something sacred behind. The roads changed from dirt to concrete, then from quiet fields to city streets lined with noise and strangers. I looked out the window, clutching the small photo frame I had brought with me, my late husband's picture inside. His eyes, frozen in a smile, seemed to follow me, as if asking, "Are you sure about this, Ahyoka?" When we finally stopped, I saw the building, a big gray structure with a small sign that said Willow Creek Retirement Center. The word retirement felt wrong in my mouth. I didn't retire from life. I was still living it. Tessa smiled and said, "See, Grandma, it's lovely, right?" Lovely, that's what she called it. But to me it looked cold. The windows had bars that pretended to be decorative. The lawn was trimmed too perfectly, like no one actually walked on it. There were a few old folks sitting on benches, staring into the distance. No one was laughing, no one was talking, just waiting. Inside, the air smelled of disinfectant and fading perfume. A woman in a beige uniform greeted us, her voice too sweet to be real. She called me sweetheart, and I instantly felt smaller. They gave me a form to sign. So many pages, so many words. Tessa stood beside me, rushing me through it. "It's just temporary, Grandma. Just until I set everything up at home. Don't worry." So I signed. My hands shook, but I signed. Because that's what trust looks like when it's blind, shaky, but willing. They took me to my room, small, clean. One bed, one chair, one window that didn't open all the way. Tessa unpacked the few clothes I brought. She placed my husband's picture on the table and smiled. "You'll be fine here," she said softly. Then her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, her smile faltering for just a second. "I have to go, Grandma. A work meeting came up." "So soon?" I asked. She hugged me quickly. "Just for a bit. I'll visit this weekend, okay? Promise." And then she left, just like that. The door closed behind her, and the silence that followed felt like a scream. I sat there, staring at the empty chair across from me. I waited for her footsteps to come back. They never did. Days passed. No call, no visit. I asked one of the nurses if my granddaughter had called. The woman gave me a polite smile and said, "Not yet, sweetheart." That word again, sweetheart. I was starting to hate it. The other residents didn't talk much. They moved slowly, quietly. Some stared at the walls as if the past might step out from them. I tried to make friends, but most of them were too far gone, lost in memories that only they could see. I told myself to be patient. Maybe Tessa really was busy. Maybe she was fixing up the house. Maybe next week she'd come back and take me home. But a month passed, then 2, then 3. One afternoon, while I sat near the window watching the rain, I overheard 2 nurses talking near the hallway. They spoke softly, but when you're old, you learn how to listen, really listen. One said, "That new lady's file's strange. It says her house was sold 2 months ago. Family sold it right after she checked in." The other replied, "Yeah, I saw that. The granddaughter handled everything. Must have needed the money." My heart stopped. My chest tightened, and the air suddenly felt too thin to breathe. Sold? My house? My home? I stood up, my knees trembling, and walked to the door. "Excuse me," I whispered. "What did you just say?" They looked startled. One of them quickly smiled and said, "Oh, nothing, dear. Don't worry yourself." But I knew that smile, the one people give when they're hiding something ugly behind it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling my world collapsing in silence. Every creak in that room sounded like betrayal whispering my name. I waited until morning, then asked the front desk for a phone. I called the number Tessa used to answer. It rang, then went to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. I left a message, a long one. My voice shook, but I begged her to tell me it wasn't true, to tell me she hadn't done what I feared. She never called back. 3 days later, a letter arrived. Not from Tessa, from a law office. It said my house had been sold legally, that my power of attorney, apparently signed by me, gave Tessa full control over my property. I stared at the paper for hours. My name was on it, my shaky signature. The same papers she told me were for temporary care. I had signed my home away. Do you know what it feels like to realize you've handed your whole life to someone who saw you not as family, but as an opportunity? Have you ever felt that cold rush in your chest, the moment when love turns into a weapon pointed at you? I sat by the window that night, tears rolling down my wrinkled cheeks. The rain outside sounded like applause, as if the world itself was mocking me. I whispered to my husband's picture, "I failed, didn't I? I trusted wrong." But even as my heart broke, something inside me refused to die. Something that had been quiet for too long. The part of me that once fought through poverty, through loss, through every storm life had thrown my way. That night, I decided I wasn't going to die in that room. Not like this. Not betrayed and forgotten. If she could erase me from my own home, I'd remind her who I was, who raised her, who fed her, who gave her everything. And I promised myself I would make her remember. The next morning I woke before dawn. The sky was still dark, the hallways silent, except for the hum of the air vents and the soft squeak of the nurse's shoes down the corridor. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding the letter again, the one that told me my home was gone. My signature stared back at me like an accusation. The paper trembled in my hand, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than sadness. I felt anger. Not the kind that shouts, not the kind that throws things. This anger was quiet, heavy, alive, the kind that comes from betrayal too deep to name. I folded the paper neatly and tucked it into the pocket of my old cardigan. I stood up and walked to the mirror above the sink. The woman staring back at me looked tired, yes, her silver hair untidy, her eyes sunken, but there was still something fierce behind them. Something that had survived loss before. "You're not done yet," I whispered to myself, "not yet." That morning I started asking questions, not loudly, not to the nurses who brushed me off with kind smiles. I started small, talking to other residents, listening to the gossip that floated like dust through the halls. You'd be surprised how much truth hides in old voices when people think no one's listening. One of the ladies, Margaret, a sweet woman, sharp as a knife when she wanted to be, told me that a few others had ended up here just like me, promised temporary care only to find their homes managed or sold by family. When she said that, I felt my stomach twist. How many of us were tucked away here while someone else lived off our memories? Later that day, I asked the front desk if I could make another phone call. The receptionist said, "Of course, sweetheart," and handed me the phone with that same practiced smile. I dialed Tessa's number again. Nothing. Then I dialed my old neighbor, Eli, the one who lived across from me for 30 years. His voice, rough and warm, cracked through the receiver. "Ahyoka! Lord, is that really you? Where have you been? They said you sold the place and moved to the city." "I didn't sell anything," I said quietly. "Eli, listen to me. My granddaughter, Tessa. She tricked me. She took everything." There was a pause, then a sigh. "I figured something wasn't right. She came by with a real estate agent a while back, said you were moving to Arizona. I didn't believe it, but she had papers, all official like. House went quick after that." My heart sank. My home wasn't just gone. It had been used. Every photograph, every piece of furniture, every memory sold off like they were nothing but things. "Do you know who bought it?" I asked. "Some couple from out of state," he said. "I tried to stop her, but she said you needed the money. I'm sorry, Ahyoka." I closed my eyes. "It's not your fault, Eli. I should have known." When I hung up, my hands were trembling again, but not from fear this time, from resolve. That evening, I went to the nurse's office under the pretense of needing my medication early. While she turned her back, I noticed a computer screen open, emails, appointments, schedules. My eyes caught something familiar, Tessa's name. She had sent an email to the facility weeks ago, confirming payment through the sale of the patient's property. My name was listed below. That was all I needed. I didn't confront anyone that night. I waited. I observed. Every evening I sat quietly by the window, pretending to doze off while I listened to the nurses chatter. And little by little a plan began to form, not revenge in the cruel sense, but something deeper, a way to make her face what she'd done. I remembered the words my late husband once told me after our youngest ran away for a year. Sometimes the only way to teach someone the weight of their choices is to let them carry it themselves. So that's what I was going to do. But I couldn't do it from inside those walls, so I started preparing. Every morning I walked around the facility, counting the steps from my room to the back gate. I made small talk with the janitor, a kind young man named Luis, and left small chocolates for him on his cart. In time, he started smiling whenever he saw me, sometimes stopping to talk about his mother back home. One day I told him, "You remind me of my grandson, always kind, always rushing." He laughed. "If I'm your grandson, then you're my abuela," he said warmly. That night I whispered to him my truth, how I'd been tricked, how my granddaughter had taken everything from me. His eyes softened with disbelief, then sympathy. "That's not right," he said. "You don't belong in here." "I know," I said softly. "But I need to leave quietly. Not for me, for her. She needs to see me again, not as someone forgotten, but as someone she wronged." Luis nodded slowly. "I can help." And from that day, he did. He began sneaking me bits of information, bus schedules, shift timings, how to unlock the back gate without setting off alarms. He brought me a small notepad and a pen. I started writing letters, not to Tessa, not yet, but to myself. Notes, memories, reminders of who I was before this place tried to shrink me. Each night I'd whisper to my husband's photograph, "Just a little longer, love. I'll see this through." And somewhere deep down, I hope that maybe, just maybe, Tessa still had enough of the girl I raised left in her heart to feel the weight of what she'd done. But life rarely gives back what it takes away. And as I would soon find out, The truth waiting for me outside those walls was even colder than the betrayal that brought me there. The night I left Willow Creek, the moon was barely a sliver, a pale knife in the sky cutting through the dark. The air was cool, quiet, trembling with the kind of stillness that always comes before change. I sat by my window, clutching my cardigan close, waiting for the clock on the wall to strike midnight. Luis had given me everything I needed, a coat, a few dollars from his own pocket, and the small key that unlocked the gate behind the laundry room. He didn't ask for anything in return. He just said, "Abuela, go find your peace." I touched his cheek, my wrinkled hand brushing his skin. "You're a good boy," I whispered. "Don't ever stop being that." When the hallway lights dimmed for night rounds, I moved, slowly, quietly, every step deliberate. The floor creaked beneath my slippers, but I'd learned how to walk softer than memory. I passed rooms filled with sleeping souls, men and women who once held entire worlds in their hands, now forgotten by those they loved most. My heart ached for them, for all of us. The back gate was small, old, half covered in ivy. The key turned easily, like it had been waiting for me. The moment it clicked open, I felt something inside me loosen, like a chain breaking after years of rust. Outside, the world smelled like freedom and rain. I took a deep breath and started walking. My legs trembled, my heart pounded, but I didn't stop. Not when the pavement turned rough, not when my shoes soaked through with dew, not when the wind whispered my name like it was testing if I still belonged out here. I walked until the sun started to rise, until the horizon blushed gold and pink. Then I saw the bus station. The clerk at the counter barely looked up when I asked for a ticket to my hometown. "That's a long trip," he said. "You sure you want to go alone, ma'am?" I smiled faintly. "I've been alone for a long time," I said. "This isn't new." The bus ride was endless. Every bump in the road rattled my bones, but I didn't care. My mind replayed everything: Tessa's voice, her promises, the papers I signed. Part of me still wanted to believe it was a mistake, that she didn't mean to hurt me. But the deeper truth had already taken root. She had planned it. She had chosen herself over me. By the time I stepped off the bus, my old neighborhood looked smaller. My house, my home, was gone. In its place stood a renovated two-story building, painted pale blue, with shiny windows and flower boxes hanging from the porch. A young couple stood outside, laughing as they watered the plants. For a moment, I just stood there, gripping my bag, staring at the door that used to be mine. I could still see the marks where my husband had carved our initials in the frame. They'd painted over them, but I knew where to look. The woman noticed me. "Oh, hello," she said kindly. "Can I help you?" I swallowed hard. "I used to live here," I said softly. "Many years ago." Her face lit up. "Oh, you must be the lady the realtor told us about. You built this house, right?" I nodded. "My husband and I. He's gone now." She smiled gently. "It's a beautiful home. We're taking good care of it." I thanked her, and before I left, she said something that pierced me deeper than she could have known. "Your granddaughter told us you'd moved somewhere warmer. Said you wanted to start fresh." The words twisted like a knife in my heart. "Did she?" I whispered. I walked away before my tears could betray me. There was only one place left to go, Tessa's apartment. I still remembered the address she once mailed me a postcard from. It wasn't far. When I reached the building, it was nothing like I'd imagined. Expensive, modern, glass everywhere. I buzzed her number at the door. A few seconds later, her voice came through the speaker, soft, distracted. "Hello?" "Tessa," I said quietly. "It's me." Silence, then a sharp intake of breath. "Grandma?" "Yes," I said. "Can I come up?" Her voice hesitated. "Now? I'm in the middle of something." "I'll wait," I said simply. After a pause, the door clicked open. She met me in the hallway, her face pale, eyes wide. "How did you get here?" she whispered. "I walked," I said, "and rode a bus. You didn't think I'd stay there forever, did you?" She tried to smile, but her lips trembled. "Grandma, I can explain." I raised my hand. "Don't lie to me, Tessa, please. I'm too old for lies." She looked away, tears forming, and for a moment I saw the child I once knew, the little girl who used to braid wildflowers into my hair, but that child was gone. I stepped into her apartment. It was beautiful. Modern furniture, golden lamps, everything neat and expensive. My eyes fell on a framed photo on her shelf. Tessa smiling, holding keys in her hand. In the background was my house. My heart sank. "You sold my home," I said quietly. "You used my trust to take everything from me." Her face crumpled. "Grandma, I didn't mean for it to go that far. I was drowning in debt. My job barely paid. I thought I could fix things before you found out. Buy it back, maybe." I cut her off gently. "You thought you had time to fix betrayal?" Her tears fell fast now. "I just wanted to survive." I nodded slowly. "And you did. You survived. But you killed something along the way, Tessa, something that doesn't come back." She reached for me, sobbing. "Please, Grandma, I'm sorry. I'll make it right." I stepped back. "You can't buy back trust, child. You can't paint over betrayal." She dropped to her knees, crying into her hands. And for a long while I just stood there watching her, my heart breaking all over again, not from what she did, but from what love had turned her into. Finally I whispered, "I forgive you." Her head shot up in shock. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means I won't carry your sin on my back anymore." I walked toward the door. She called after me, "Where will you go?" I paused, looking back one last time. "Home," I said softly, whatever that means now, and I left. I didn't look back after I left Tessa's building. Some pains aren't meant to be stared at twice. They're like the sun. They'll blind you if you try to face them too long. My feet carried me through the streets without knowing where to go, just following the soft whisper of the wind. Maybe it was the ancestors guiding me home, or maybe it was just the last bit of hope I still had left. I ended up by the river, the same kind of river my husband and I used to sit beside when life was simple and our hearts were still full. I found an empty bench worn from time, and I sat there. The world around me felt both heavy and calm. The trees swayed gently, and the air smelled like rain and earth, the scent of beginnings and endings all mixed together. For a while I cried, not loud, not broken, just the kind of crying that comes from deep inside your bones when you realize love can wound even when it comes wrapped in family. I thought about all the years I spent believing that blood meant forever, that if you poured your heart into someone, they would carry a piece of you with kindness. But the truth, my dear, is this. Sometimes the people you raise with love will choose their own storms, even if it drowns you in the process. I stayed by that river until the sun began to set, painting the water in gold. My reflection stared back at me, wrinkled, worn, but still alive, still breathing. And in that reflection, I saw something I hadn't seen in years: strength. I realized then that life doesn't always give you the ending you prayed for, but it gives you a chance to still find peace, even in pieces. I rented a small room near the river, nothing grand, just a bed, a chair, and a window that faced the sunrise. Every morning, I'd sit there with my tea, watching the world wake up. The loneliness didn't disappear, but it softened, like an old scar that stopped hurting when touched. Sometimes I'd see families walking by, children laughing, couples holding hands. I'd smile at them, not with bitterness, but with understanding. You can't force people to love you the way you love them. You can only love deeply, let go gently, and forgive silently. Weeks passed, and one morning a letter arrived. No return address. Just my name in handwriting I knew too well. Tessa's. Inside she wrote, I sold the car, Grandma. I paid back what I took. I left the rest in your name. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope you find peace. I held that letter for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just whispered, maybe you'll understand one day, child, what it means to give everything and still lose everything. I placed the letter under a small stone by the riverbank. I didn't need to keep it. Some apologies belong to the wind. Now I live quietly. I talk to the birds, the trees, and the spirits that still remember me. And every evening when the sun dips low, I whisper a prayer, not for what I lost, but for what I still have. Peace. And if anyone ever asks me what betrayal feels like, I'll tell them this. It's the sound of a promise breaking, but it's also the whisper of strength returning. Because no matter how many times the world forgets you, you must never forget yourself. So, if you're listening to my story tonight, tell me, have you ever loved someone so much that you lost yourself trying to keep them? If you have, then maybe, like me, you're still learning that love doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes real love means walking away with your dignity, your memories, and the quiet grace of forgiveness. My name is Ahyoka, and this was my story. Now tell me, what would you have done if your own blood left you behind? If my story touched your heart, don't let it fade. Share it so the world remembers that even broken hearts still have a voice.